لا يا صاح يا صاح لا تجزع وتنجر وسلم للمقادير كي تحمد وتجر وكن راضي بما قدر المولى ودبر ولا تسخط قضى الله رب العرش الأكبر.
ألا يا الله بنظرة من العين الرحيمة تداوي كل ما بي من أمراض سقيمة.
Welcome to the first episode of the Soul Enquiry podcast, a recorded session of soul inquiring conversations and guided meditation. In this episode, we will start off with a recorded group meditation consisting of myself, Muhammad Tariq Anis, Brother Abdullah Rothman, an accredited professional in this field and the designated guide of our session, along with Brother Yusuf Jaha, a speaker and translator who works with the Awqaf. We will begin by playing the meditation session under Abdullah Rothman's guidance, in which you are encouraged to participate and follow along. This will be followed by an extensive dialogue that further inquires into the nature of meditation, its relevance to Islamic tradition, and what can people expect from meditation. If you wish to skip to the dialogue, the time codes will be provided in the description below.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, just going to ask you to sit down comfortably, wherever you're seated. Make sure your back is straight, your spine is erect. Maybe push the bottom of your back into the back of your chair if you're sitting in a chair. And feel the bottoms of your feet connecting to the ground beneath you. And just begin to disconnect from the outside world, wherever you were just doing. Just leave it behind and bring your present awareness into this current moment. And as you do that, just close your eyes and bring your attention to the internal awareness inside of you. Being aware of your surroundings, but really bringing your focus inside. Just take a moment to sit and feel this place, feeling the weight of your body in the chair that you're sitting in or on the ground beneath you. And just take a moment to just be here. You can notice the thoughts that are coming that are bringing you away from this moment. Just don't pay attention to them. Bring your awareness back to this moment and back to this place inside of you. Now, from this place of presence in this seated position, I want you to take some really deep, conscious breaths. Just be aware that you are slowing your breath, so that you're breathing in slowly with a longer breath than usual. And exhaling slowly. Try, if you can, to be conscious of taking a diaphragm breath. So really involving the lower part from your abdomen in the inhale. Really expanding the chest as you breathe. Just try taking a few of these slow, conscious breaths. And with each exhale, allow the gravity to take further hold of your body. Just feel your tailbone in the seat of the chair beneath you. Feel your feet connecting with the ground. And allow any tension or excess anxiousness to exit from the bottoms of your feet. You'll notice there may be some thoughts in your mind, and that you are aware of those thoughts and any tension in your head. You might feel it in your temples or in your forehead. Just be aware of the tension that might be there. And just bring your awareness and see if you can relax the tension in your brow. And I want you to bow your head to your heart. And imagine that any of those thoughts or the busy mind or any of that tension, just allow it to seep down out of your head, and as if you're locating the source of those thoughts in your heart. Again, taking slow breaths as you do this, and really bowing your head to your heart. Just think about what that means. You're allowing your head and the cognitive process, your thoughts, just to take a backstage for right now. And honoring and noticing, recognizing and being in this place in your chest. It's the same area where your physical heart is, but we're talking from in between both shoulders, just below your neck, right in the center of your chest. You'll notice that it's the very same place that when you take a deep breath in, this is where your chest is expanding with air. So just take another deep breath and allow your chest to expand, maybe even stretching your shoulders back to make more room, to bring more of this fresh breath into this place in your heart. As you notice this place in your heart, this center of your being, just also notice your body. Feel your shoulders, feel the palms of your hand on your thighs if that's where they are, or feel them hanging to your side. Feel your legs, any sensations that are happening in your legs and your body, down to your feet, and again connecting your feet to the ground beneath you. Just really being aware of the place where your body is physically located right now in this place. And while you're holding that body awareness, again, bring your concentration, your focus of your awareness to this central place in your heart. And as you try to connect with this place, if you notice thoughts that are coming up, that are judging what you're doing, that are asking questions, that are remembering things that you have to do, just be aware of the thoughts and just say to yourself quietly, I am not my thoughts. I am not my thoughts. And beneath that, allow this awareness in your heart to just take a center stage. Just be present with a focus on this place in your chest. See what it feels like to acknowledge this as the center of your being. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Just let each deep breath bring, as you inhale and you bring more air into your lungs, allow your chest to expand, to bring greater awareness to this place. And as if each breath is bringing more attention, more awareness, and more intention into this place in your heart where you're locating yourself, your being, and even your consciousness. In the Quran it says, do they not have hearts with which they see? Just contemplate on what does it mean to see with the heart. Feel with your heart. Perceive with your heart. You may feel sensation in your chest. Try to key into what that sensation is bringing to you. Again, keeping your awareness in the chest, but bringing in these deep, slow breaths and maintaining a conscious awareness of your body sitting here in this moment. Try to connect with how your heart and the sensations in your chest are responding to this experience right now. Do you feel any fluttering in your heart? Do you feel any constriction in the chest? Just bringing more awareness to what exists in this place. And as your thoughts distract you from this place, or as you become aware of anything outside of you, just again bring your focus to the sensation, the physical sensation in this place in your chest. Allah. Allah. With each breath, allow yourself to sit more into this chair or into the ground beneath you. As you exhale, let your hips release. Let any tension in your neck release. And if you notice any tension in your brow or in your head, again, bow your head to your heart and let all of that tension just melt down into this place in your chest, letting your heart absorb all of that distraction and the thinking, the anxiety. Just let it all concentrate in this place inside of you, in the center of your being, right in the center of your chest. And then take another deep breath into that very same place. And as you feel that air expand your chest, feel your body relax. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel your tailbone. And again, bring your awareness to your heart. Recognizing that this center is the central intelligence of your entire body. So that as you're aware of your limbs and any tension that is stored in the extraneous parts of your body, as if you're locating all of those sensations in their source, in the center of your being, just locating your conscious awareness in your heart. And as you start to feel, if you feel disconnected or you feel suffocated from that, just keep a constant conscious awareness of the flowing of the breath. So that you're allowing the introducing of this fresh, clean air that's coming into your lungs and cleansing this place. And exhaling any of the constriction, the tension, the doubt. Just let that go. Breathe it out. Feel it be absorbed through the bottoms of your feet into the ground beneath you. And in this center of your heart, just if you can envision the name of Allah written in the center of your heart. Allah. So if you have any restriction, you have any tension in this place, or if it's difficult to be here in this place of presence in your heart, just allow all of those tensions and restrictions, allow them to be there at the same time as that you're bringing the witnessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala into that same place in the center of your chest. Allah. And as you fade away, your thoughts will take you drifting as you think about what you have to do next, or if you become distracted from this process. Just with each breath, make each breath a remembrance of Allah. With each breath, it's an intention to be in a state of hudur, a state of presence with your Lord, a state of witnessing your servitude, your humility before Allah. So as you exhale, just allow your humility to ground you. Allow your neediness even in this moment to stay present, even to stay afloat in this moment. Allah is sustaining you. So as you breathe in this life-giving breath into your heart, receiving it from Allah, Allah breathed into us the ruh. This is what sustains us in every moment. Just bring your conscious awareness to this sustenance as you breathe it into your lungs, as you allow it to penetrate into your chest, and allow that breath, that pure gift from Allah, allow it to penetrate your heart, accessing this pure place that exists inside of you. In the center of your being. In the center of your body. The body that is sitting here in this place, in this moment, in this immediate surroundings, on this place on the earth. And again, just feeling your feet on the earth, feeling your tailbone on the earth. And sustaining that focus on the center of your being, in the middle of your chest. Just take 3 deep, slow, intentional breaths. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And now, whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. Slowly just look around, whatever's in front of you, whatever's in your immediate surroundings, even if it's just looking at the floor. Just slowly, calmly, consciously reconnecting with what's around you, with your surroundings, and maintaining this conscious awareness internally as you absorb and connect with what's around you. Allah.
Okay, so when we were going through the meditation, one of the things I felt was the more attention I was bringing to the body, the more the energy in the body started becoming alive. Is that something that is the norm?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're like activating by bringing awareness to the body, which is why throughout the meditation I was saying, connect with your heart, but then I was always bringing you back to the body awareness, because the notion is that we already tend to section things off, so we think we're our thoughts, we very much oftentimes live from sort of our head upwards. And so the idea is by locating the center of the self in the heart as the central intelligence agency, but connecting with the entire body, basically what you're doing is like, so you saying that you feel the body activated is exactly what the intention is because this whole notion of bringing your conscious awareness to your consciousness and awareness being centralized in the heart means that by doing that you're sort of like in the notion of akal. You know, people think of that as being located in the brain, but really there's an akal of the body, an akal of the ruh, akal of the nafs.
Akal, you mean intellect?
Intellect, yeah. And so this, or even consciousness, intellecting, you know, this process of yaqilun, like of intellecting. And so when you're connecting with all of these aspects of your body, if you're doing it consciously, what you're doing is you're contacting and connecting with other forms of intelligence that are available to you within your being, other than just your logical reasoning, which tends to be what we seclude ourselves to. Our identity and our communication and our response to experiences is very much this cerebral cognitive process that is intellecting only in this logical reasoning function. And what the whole purpose of this exercise is to locate the person's central awareness in a more holistic experience of the self. And so it makes perfect sense that your body would be activated because it's your body that houses yourself, not your head.
So let's go into, just as a theme, and maybe how does that deeper sense of intellection, that deeper sense of knowing, how does that pan out? Because the mind is very abstract. When we see the mind, you know, this whole that logical, rational mind.
Mm-hmm.
But this seems very just present, and in some ways, it's kind of it's learning to let go and be, and then learning to know through being.
Yeah. Or I would say there's a receiving aspect to that, right? So often when we make sense of things through our intellect that is generated by our thoughts, perceptions, memories, logic, we are like in deducing, making sense of our experience based on that sort of logical rationale that is pretty much internal to our own dialogue or our own opinions, perceptions, knowledge, let's say. But by having this presence of being, it's like taking the focus away from this process of reasoning that's only based on your own, what you have access to based on your own knowledge and memory and experience, and really like opening your receptors of being to include what's outside of you. So it's a little bit of a paradox in the sense that what we're doing is we're centering and focusing on what's inside of us, and I'm even asking people to disconnect from what's outside. But then this process of breathing, you're breathing in air which is outside of you and absorbing it and opening to and receiving something, right? And so so we're receiving the air, we're receiving the life breath, but then what we know, what I have learned is that in the Islamic tradition is that you can receive knowledge. And I don't mean just like knowledge of the books, that you just suddenly have book knowledge, but that your perception of reality can be informed by reception, like receiving the truth rather than deducing the truth.
That's interesting.
That's a very good way of putting it.
Just today, this whole discussion of the role of the heart was probably, and I'd appreciate if you could speak about that, because there's obviously a prophetic saying of istafti qalbak, consult your heart. And one of the things that I came across in terms of the commentary on that was that that's for someone who can find their heart. Because the Quran says that this book, or this is a remembrance for someone who has a heart, وَأَلْقَى السَّمَاء, who the admonition really gets to, and that's very like almost alive, like you can feel it. وَهُوَ شَهِيدٌ, and he's a witness.
Exactly.
So it's almost as if these things are pillars, that first you have to find your heart, then once you've found the heart, you get the message through that discerning capacity of the heart, and you're able to just rest in being a witness, which means almost as if that egoic self gets out the way, that mind gets out the way. And the question would be, what I found was, how do we find the heart? Because when you had those breaths, and there were points when I entered, and I'm speaking very personal here, so Tariq, you might have your own take, but when I entered into that point where that presence was coming, that heart center, which you say is very close to the physical heart, there was almost a kind of expansion the more I was coming into that presence. And it's kind of a paradox, as you say, because the more you come into it, the more what you take yourself to be kind of loses.
Right.
So it wears you out, in a sense.
Well, it wears what you took yourself to be out. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, this is why. So this notion of like, what was it? Listening to the heart, or consult your heart. But first, you need to know your heart, or find your heart, right? So the reason why we started with this meditation, or this guided imagery, where it's really focusing centrally on locating one's self within the heart, because I think even for spiritual people, even for Muslims, even for people of spiritual orientation, because we live in this world that is so influenced by, well, just a fast-paced world, but then influenced by this I think therefore I am notion. We get really, we think we are our thoughts, like so, you know, when you ask people how you feel, they don't tell you how they feel, they tell you what they're thinking, or they tell you about what's happening to them. And so this idea of like finding your heart is not something that I think people can do very easily in this day and age, because we've become really disconnected from it. And even people, you know, I find even people that talk about the qalb or talk about these notions in Islam that have to do with the heart, when you're in, you know, you don't get the sense that they necessarily have found their heart. You know, it's more of this logical or reasoning understanding of what these concepts are, but the concepts are, you know, almost useless if there's not an experience. And so the finding of the heart, I think, takes practice. Actually, I know takes practice. It's not something, you know, I've sometimes said to people, oh, well, I spend a lot of time connecting people with their heart. And I've had other people, even like practitioners, who say, well, I think everybody knows where their heart is. And I disagree. I think people don't even realize they have a heart. It's an abstract notion, and they know they have this thing that pumps blood in their chest. But the notion of the heart center, you know, so that it's not just the physical heart. Like, yes, we know that the physical heart has connections to the spiritual heart, but it's really the center of your being. And I'm pointing to like in between my shoulders and, you know, this center part of the upper chest. And the only way that I have found to really, like you're saying, find this place of the heart so that you can actually be guided by it, is to spend a considerable amount of time practicing being centered in that place. And that means disconnecting from thinking, disconnecting from doing, disconnecting from sort of just rote way that we go through our lives, and taking some time out to be in a state of presence. And I think, it's ideal that we do that like in salat or in dhikr and all the things that people are already doing as Muslims in ibadah, and yet there are often times we're not present in those things. And so to me, this practice of finding the heart or doing these meditations to get in touch with it, it's like a training ground or like it's practicing so that you can utilize the effect of that practice in your daily life. Absolutely within salat, so you have khushu when you're praying, but then also like so that throughout the day, throughout the rest of the day in between salat, you can find a place of presence, and then inshallah after you've done it a while, actually find a place of guidance in the heart. And so I think this is when you talk about the Prophet ﷺ saying this, but then there being this sort of inclusion of needing to know the heart in order to be sort of following it. I think this is where people's lack of experience, maybe lack of knowledge, and then fear keeps them from even getting in touch with the heart. So we have people that say like, well, I'm afraid, I don't want to tell people to follow the heart, or I'm afraid of following the heart, because how do you know that that's really Allah's guidance and not like your own waswasa or this shaitan or your ego or something, and that's a totally valid point, because that's, but then on the transverse of that is, so then you disconnect from that, and you also don't know how do you know how you're following Allah? It's not only from books that we get this. There's plenty of things that guide us to recognize that it's our own responsibility to follow these things from a place of changing what's in our heart. And so I just think you can't get there without a considerable amount of practice doing just that, like being in your heart. And I would say from like constantly, so every day for a certain period of time, or I've heard of teachers or masters spending months or years just sitting in contemplation.
Seclusion.
The Prophet ﷺ was in the cave.
What was he doing?
He wasn't just sitting in the cave thinking. He was contemplating and connecting with the heart, and this is the way.
I mean, it's interesting that the Quran itself constantly says that no one gets this. That you will not get this except ulil albab, people of cause, people of hearts. And you mentioned this thing about it's not the eyes that go blind, but the heart within the breasts that go blind. So it's kind of a paradox, and I think this is something I was grappling with today with somebody on the same point, that we can turn these instructions to connect with the heart into concepts with the mind. So there will be like, because we've read it,
right?
Because we've spoken about it, and this is another thing but yet they're direct instructions, and they're pointers, and what I sense is so much of Islam are these pointers in terms of how we prepare for Salah, in terms of what we do in Salah, and those motions, and they're all bringing us into that contemplative space.
Absolutely.
But if we're not going to engage with them with what they're intended to do, then our engagement itself becomes a kind of bypassing of the
shallow.
It's amazing to me that people don't realize that there's this action and physical aspect to engaging in these things. So you said your body it was charged or in what was the word that you used, like
charged,
or enlivened or something. And so like
wired. I think you said wired.
Right.
Right.
the fact that salat is a physical actions where your entire body is in the process, and then that we have, when you study like how you're supposed to pray salat, you're supposed to come to a complete rest in each position. Why? What do we do? What does that mean? To be at rest in the body, and we hear of those that pray that have khushu, like it's all of these, it's like a formula for setting somebody up to be in a state of reflection, contemplation, and internal calmness, so that they can witness Allah. The whole point of salat is to come face to face to witness Allah.
There's a prophetic statement that the closest you are in your prayer is the sajda, which, if you think about what it is symbolically, it's flattening the brain, and the heart is actually raised above it.
Yeah. So it's sort of interesting, like in the meditation I said, bow the head to the heart. It's almost a transverse of that in vertically, but the idea is that it's honoring the heart as the one that's guiding.
So during the meditation, it's interesting that you said that it's almost as if we are defying the idea of I think, therefore I am, or rather transcending it. We're not necessarily just cerebral beings where we just think with our brains, but it's also beyond that. And when I heard this, I came back to the thought of something that I realized within myself, that as I gained or learned new things, or quote unquote became more knowledgeable, I became less receptive. Sometimes I fear being less receptive of ignorant people, and therefore have less compassion for them. And in a way, this exercise has allowed me to see that, and that and I wonder if meditation is also meant to to make us as better human beings in society. If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Does it allow us to become more compassionate? Us supposedly knowledgeable people, does it allow us to become more in tune with our compassion and mercy towards those who are ignorant and those who are less knowing?
Yeah. I think it does create more compassion, and I would say that probably like the crux of what it does in terms of what your question is, that it the knowledge, there's different types of knowledge. So the idea of gaining mastery over information and storing information in your cerebral capacity, right, is much different than experiential knowledge. So they're almost like two different beasts altogether. And so because people are so removed from any experience of themselves at all, so if you're not living your life as an experience, meaning you're allowing yourself to receive and perceive things as your whole being, then you're cutting yourself off from experiential knowledge, essentially. And so what we do is we limit ourselves to this cerebral interplay with experiences, to where we just are collecting information, and then internally or within our own brain deciding what position we take. And then our ego gets involved, our nuffs of like, we like the fact that we've acquired this knowledge, and then we attribute it to ourselves, like I have mastered this knowledge and I have mastery over this subject. And so this is where the lack of compassion comes in, because you're looking at the other person in the sense of, oh, well, you do not have what I have, therefore you are, insufficient in compared
inferior
to my, Whereas somebody whose knowledge comes from experiential knowledge, the experience of that is a recognition that the knowledge that you gain is not something that you have, because it's not something you acquired because of your own volition or your own specialness or your own intelligence. The whole idea of experiential knowledge, or in Arabic ma'arifa, is that it's something that has been gifted to you. So what I have found in the teachers that I have studied with, who I consider to be extremely knowledgeable, their height of their knowledge is in knowing that they don't know anything. You know, as soon as somebody determines that they know something, it puts them in this other category of almost, you can tell or you see, or they've almost determined for themselves that they're veiled from something. They're veiled from the fact that they did not originate this knowledge. You know, like in the Bible it says, or in Ecclesiastics, there is nothing new under the sun. Right? So the idea, what we would understand from an Islamic perspective, is that everything comes from Allah. All knowledge is from Allah's reality. And even an idea that we attribute to, like Descartes or Nietzsche or all of these brilliant thinkers, were inspired by Allah's inspiration, right? And so when somebody has true knowledge, it's not something they own. So there's even this notion of having knowledge, I think is a wrong way to think about it. And I think when people think that they have knowledge is where the ego comes in, and like you're saying, you have less compassion for people who are quote unquote ignorant, because you have made the judgment that what you have, they don't have.
Right.
Whereas in reality, none of us as human beings have anything. We have the ability to receive knowledge, and if it's true knowledge, so this is where we decipher between even like using the word aql. Some scholars would say that it's not really aql if you're not perceiving things as they are in their truth. And the only way you can do that is if you have a heart that perceives the truth. And the only way you do that is by having a clean heart, or a clean nafs, and a clean heart, so that your heart is perceiving Allah's knowledge, like the knowledge from Allah that you can receive, and you can perceive it, and that's still, I would say, your sort of filtering truth. But then this idea of like receiving knowledge is when somebody is so clear and so removed from the misperception of their own intelligence that is acquiring this said knowledge, and then they're receiving this pure knowledge, I would say. And if that happens, it is almost impossible for the person to be in this selfish place of saying, I'm smarter than you. Because just by nature of being able to receive that knowledge, it's only by nature of having a clean heart, which is therefore a clean nafs, in the sense that the ego is sort of has been stepped on, at least, if not removed, to the point where they're not attributing that the acquiring of that knowledge to their own self. And so that's why they would be more compassionate, or more tolerable of ignorance, because it sort of flips the whole notion of ignorance and intelligence on its head.
It reminds me of that incident when Bilal ibn Rabah, when someone when there was a heated argument between him and one of the companions, and the companion's tongue slipped, and he called him out by his race. And so the Prophet noticed, and he called him out, like, well, why would you do this? And so immediately the companion, when he realized what he had done, he immediately lowered his head to the ground, and he asked Bilal to step on him, because he said, I'm still, my heart is still lingering in the Jahiliyyah, so the age of ignorance. So that's just an amazing outlook on knowledge. It's being receptive.
What's interesting here, Jahiliyyah is often posited as the opposite to Tawheed. And the Quran says no when it says La ilaha illallah, which has so often been mistranslated. Basically, it's a statement of reality. It's saying negate all that's false until you know that which is true. And it could also be translated as the journey from ego to egolessness, so that you can see that true oneness of God shining. And those who go on that journey, often the mystic sages, Ibn Ata'illah al-Iskandari, one of the great scholars, mystic sages, actually answered the exact question you're posing, Tariq, in the form of an aphorism. So he said, فَأَيُّ عِلْمٍ لِلْعَالِمٍ, what knowledge does a so-called scholar or knowledgeable person have who is ignorant of his own ego? And what ignorance does a so-called ignorant person have who's aware of his own ego? That you keep the company of a so-called ignorant person who's aware of his own ego is better than that you keep the company of a so-called scholar who's ignorant of his own ego. In other words, the whole criterion of knowledge is turned on its head as the way the secular world, or generally when it comes to the identity, looks at knowledge. All knowledge returns back to that criterion of how far are you in this trajectory from being from the ego to egolessness.
Gives the whole a different perspective, doesn't it?
Yes.
Because ilm is a state of being and not necessarily assimilating information.
And the scholars of Islamic spirituality would touch upon depths of knowing as well. I mean, there's knowing which is ilm al-yaqeen. Just you've got a degree of knowledge, and then there's ayn al-yaqeen, which is like a type of witnessing, and there's haqqul yaqeen, which is being. Some would say haqiqatul yaqeen, where you're completely, there's nothing except haqiqa, reality itself. And so these are all degrees. And what I took from Abdullah in this guided meditation was, this is one of a format of tafakkur, contemplation. And that's why traditionally you pick up any book of Islamic spirituality, and in terms of a prescription of how you should be as someone who's trying to get to the goal, which is true knowledge, then there would always be a prescription of contemplation. So just today I was reading the description of Abu Darda, a very famous companion, and his wife was asked what was his greatest worship, and it was contemplation. And he said, because it's through contemplation you discern truth from falsehood. And Ibn Ajib, another great mystic sage, said the definition of tafakkur or contemplation is sayrul qalbi ila hadratil rabbi, is the journeying of the heart to the presence of the Lord.
يا الله بنظرة من العين الرحيمة تداوي كل ما بي من أمراض سقيمة.